So Bradley Beal was traded today to the Phoenix Suns for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, and a handful of second-round picks, which I believe was 4 second-round picks. There was a report the other day that came out that the Wizards' top 2 picks, well, Bradley Beal's top 2 picks for teams he wanted to be traded to were Miami and Phoenix. Miami was like a known target. It felt like Miami is always in these types of deals. And I feel like I've seen Bradley Beal edits in a Miami Heat jerseys multiple times before. But the Phoenix Suns one was very surprising. And the fact that it happened like the next day was shocking this morning when it happened. I've had some time to think about it. I've seen a lot of different opinions from a lot of people online about positives and negatives for this move. Initially, I thought it was a negative, and I still think it's a negative. First off, on the Wizards side of it, I mean, what? They traded Bradley Beal for a bag of chips, bro. Like, Chris Paul is going to get sent to another team. Landry Shamet is an okay bench piece, and you got 4 second-round picks, which, I mean, 4 is a lot, but they're just still only second-round picks. I think like 2 or 3 years ago when Bradley Beal was averaging 30 points per game, you could have traded him for 4 first-round picks, not second-round picks, and like a young player too. But they didn't do that. The old management was like, nah, we got to build around Bradley Beal, whatever, and here we are. I'll give the applause to the new management that just came into office, who are realizing like, hey, we got to fix this mess somehow and restart. But the fact that the Wizards organization realized this and fired their GM only this last season, and now they got this new GM who has to like fix up all their problems and stuff, and the fact that they gave him $200 million over 5 years and a no trade clause, which means that he could choose where he wanted to get traded to and could say no to any deal, like with whatever player. Like if DeAndre Ayton was in this deal and he didn't want to play with DeAndre Ayton, he could say no to it. Just the fact that they even gave him that trade in the first place is ridiculous. So enough on the Wizards. So now the Phoenix Suns got a new big 3 of Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal, which is, I don't know. I don't really like it because I think there's a lot of offensive overlap in these 3 players. I saw a comment earlier, somebody saying the Suns got Devin Booker, small Devin Booker, and tall Devin Booker, which is pretty funny because there is some truth to it. Obviously not completely, but they are all, I mean, they're all really great scorers, but they are all really good mid-range scorers, pretty good 3-point scorers, all of them, but they all kind of provide that scoring. I mean, Bradley Beal is not that good defensively. I think Devin Booker had a lot of good moments defensively in this past playoffs, and Kevin Durant, when he's locked in, can be a really nice, good help defender. But none of them are like amazing on defense. Playmaking wise, they're all pretty good, pretty decent, but none of them are like a true point guard playmaker. I think Devin Booker has gained a lot of reps as a point guard role. And in this scenario, currently they don't have a point guard other than Cameron Payne, and I'm not giving Cameron Payne the ball. And I think the point of having a big 3 like this is that the ball is going to be in their hands for the majority of the time, which means, are you saying that Devin Booker is the point guard now? Because I don't really think that's the greatest thing. I mean, somehow they have to get a point guard who can just facilitate a little bit, but these guys are going to have the ball in their hand for the majority of the time. In terms of offense, I hope it's not going to be just ISO, my turn, your turn, my turn, like 3 guys doing ISOs and pick and rolls and whatnot. I hope they find some more unique and different stuff to throw at defenses, because, I mean, defenses are already going to have to be guarding 3 players that can score 25 points per game on any given night. And that's kind of like the idea, basketball-wise, behind this trade, is that you have 3 dudes who any given night they can go off for 30 points, which is scary as a defense. You really got to watch out for that. But that's kind of it, like it's just these guys. And I think the biggest problem with that, other than injury, which I think injury is a real concern, because Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal have both had injury issues the past couple years, so I don't think you can just gloss over that. But depth, I know there's a lot of people like, oh, you got these 3 scorers, whatever, they'll be fine. In the playoffs, they do shorter rotations anyway and whatnot, which is true. But in an 82-game season, you need a full roster of players that can play, so you're not playing all these guys 35 minutes per game. And right now, they don't really have a roster. They have these guys plus DeAndre Ayton, which, like I said, is $164 million. 4 max contracts on one roster. And then what? You got like Cameron Payne. I think you could bring back Jacques Landale on a deal. I think you can bring back, Torrey Craig. But yeah, that's like 6 dudes. You're going to need more than that. And on the DeAndre Ayton part of it, I don't think he's staying on this team because while they do need a center, I just think the relationship between Ayton and the Suns, I don't know if it was just Ayton and their coach. Oh my God, I forgot his name right now. But I don't know if the lack of a relationship which was just between him and the coach. I think it could be him and the Suns because they didn't want to pay him the money. They only gave him the money after the Pacers gave him that deal, and then they matched it, and they're like, okay, here, fine, here's their money. I just don't think, based off of Ayton's play in the playoffs, he was not very engaged.
Jokic, couple of tries, misses, gets it back, missed again.
And just his play style overall is not really, he's more of a finesse big where he tries to do his turnaround fadeaway jumpers, hook shots and whatnot, which is fine. But I think this team needs a defensive-minded center who can get a lot of rebounds, who's really tough offensively, and just doesn't need that big of an offensive role so that they're not slowing down the offense like Ayton sometimes was when he was trying to get his shots. And when he wasn't getting his shots, he wasn't as engaged. So I just think you need to trade Ayton and just wash your hands off of that situation. But at the same time, he doesn't have that much value anymore. We all saw in the playoffs how disengaged he was, and maybe you can be like, okay, that was just because it was a bad relationship and whatnot, but he's not worth this contract that he's on. He's getting paid $30 million this year, this past season. Then the next 3 years, 32 mil, 34 mil, 35 mil. He's not worth that money at all. He's never been worth $32 million. That's like an all-NBA center, and he hasn't ever been that close to an all-NBA center. So I don't know what team is going to fool themselves into thinking that, hey, maybe if we trade for him, he can be that for us. And whatever team that is that can fool themselves into thinking that, how many players are they going to give up? Are they going to give up their own center plus another piece back in return for Ayton? Because that's kind of the point of trading him away, is that you can get more than one player back, or else you would just keep him, So I don't know what team out there really exists that would trick themselves into believing that, Ayton on our team, we can make him work. Not necessarily fix him, but just thinking that, maybe he would be better in a new situation, in our situation. I don't know what team that is. So yeah, with these 3 dudes, they're huge contracts, and the new CBA, which severely restricts what you can do when you have this much money on these players. I don't really know what they're gonna do, because championships are not really won by big threes. I feel like in the last few years we've seen that with the Lakers, with the Nets, where you just having these 3 guys and then role players or players that aren't that good around them, it doesn't really work out. And I just don't see it with this team because there's such a overlap in offensive talent in terms of what they do. But yeah, we'll see what other moves they make, how else they round out the roster, which I think then we can really decide, are they a title contender? Because I don't think it's impossible to say, are they a title contender now when they don't even have a full roster. We need to find out what their full roster is and, go from there, because right now, 3 dudes who have, offensively, this is on the same likes of a KD, Harden, and Kyrie in terms of offense. And that offense was amazing. But they also had a really good center, Nick Claxton. They had shooters like a Joe Harris, This team doesn't really have the defensive 3-point shooting, role players, defensive center, all that stuff that helps win a championship. You need the talent, you had the talent, you had a lot of shot creation, and now you added more shot creation, and you still have that lack of depth. And again, if any of these 3 dudes get injured, that just makes your team look much more thinner than it already is. So yeah, on the Wizards side, in terms of what you could get back for Bradley Beal. Oh, and the really funny part about all of this is that Bradley Beal's agent is the father of the Suns CEO. So yeah, happy Father's Day for Bradley Beal and the Suns and his agent, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, this is a weird trade for the Wizards. This trade sucks. They could have gotten much better years ago. I think the Miami Heat package would have been better than this because they would have gotten some first round picks. And for Phoenix, I understand the idea of getting more star talent and everything, but I just think the money, if you don't win a championship this year, it's going to get harder and harder to build around this team because you're going to have more restrictions on what you can do, who you can sign, how much money you can spend, who you can trade for, and everything. So it kind of feels like a championship or bust season for Phoenix now. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments below, what do you think about this trade? Is it a win for the Phoenix Suns? Is it an L? Is it to be determined? Because it probably is. Let me know in the comments below.